All right, everybody. Here we are today with our next guest in the Urban Investors Podcast. So I'm super excited today to introduce you guys to Mr. Umaer Haq. We're going to introduce him and he's going to say a little bit more about himself in a moment. But welcome back for those returning, for those who are coming for the first time. Welcome to the Urban Investors Podcast series, a part of the UPC Podcast Network. And we interview the most innovative local entrepreneurs and investors who are just doing big things in the area, in the DMV and beyond. And we believe there are no secrets to success. So none of our guests are trying to hold anything back. They don't have any secrets that it's like, oh my gosh, they're here letting you know what the things that they're doing. And we believe in the theory of proximity, right? So if you are close, if you can reach out and touch somebody that's doing something big, then you can do that big thing as well. And that's the theory that we operate on. So we've got a wonderful guest here, a friend of mine, Mr. Umaer. And without further ado, founder of Hands On Real Estate. We want you to introduce yourself to the people and explain, how. Well, just do the intro for now, and then we'll kind of get more into your business model in the future. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the music and we'll get going.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for having me. I love to be able to share, my own experiences and things that I've dealt with over the last 12 years of just being in business. So where do you want me to start? You just want me to share just a little bit about myself?
A little about yourself, your background, which is a very interesting one, and then how you ended up getting into real estate.
For sure, man. So I was a knucklehead in school when I was a kid and just rambunctious. Us guys, we can't be in a box with fluorescent lights sitting there and focusing on something. So I struggled through school. I was an athlete. I wrestled in high school. I got into boxing. And then early on in my life, I got kicked out of school. I went to an alternative school, just doing dumb stuff. You know what I mean? And so after getting kicked out of school and working my way back, I finally graduated from high school. And then I was going to community college here in Virginia. And it was just really expensive. And I remember sitting in my accounting class thinking to myself, I was like, man, this is like $350 a credit. And I think I needed 60 or maybe 70 credits, if I remember correctly, just to get my associate's degree. So I was like, man, this sucks. And so at the time I was living with my mom and dad in their basement from Lorton, Virginia. And just in my 20s, struggling just with money, because I wanted so badly to get out of my parents' house. I come from a strict Muslim family, and that's just not me. I'm an American, right? So I was doing some professional boxing and some mixed martial arts because that's what I thought. I had no choice. I grew up doing kickboxing and won a lot of titles as an amateur kickboxer. I fought in different countries. And so then around 24, 25, I was like, man, what am I going to do with my life? I know I can't get punched in the face for a living, and then I started doing it professionally, but the passion for that just went away. I was like, man, I'm not making money. I'm breaking my body. Right. I was delivering food in Washington, D.C. for a company called Postmates. I wonder if they're still around. So Postmates, I was like delivering food and doing all kind of stuff. Originally, I got introduced to real estate from University of YouTube. I'm on Bigger Pockets. I'm buying programs left and right. And it was tough. You know what I mean? I'm spending money I don't have on credit cards, trying to chase a dream. And I'm just glad I never tapped out, man. I'm a hard worker, and I was committed to figuring it out. I knew that I didn't want to do the school approach. I knew that I wanted to create my own destiny. And I eventually found a program that was worth its weight in gold, followed that program, and I'm just glad I never gave up, man. You pay for what you get what you pay for. And, whether you eat at McDonald's or you take your family to Ruth Chris, it's a money thing, right? So you get the quality of what you have. And so that's a little background about me, man. I'm still training. I have some amateur boxers. We just had a show in DC, and what I'm passionate about is working with younger guys and even gals like me who want some direction. And I really get to follow my passion because of real estate. You know, I don't love real estate. It's not what I was born to do. It just makes me a hell of a lot of money. And I am addicted to the game a little bit now, you know, but because I started looking at it as a game. But other than that, man, that's kind of like how I got started, and a little background. And so for any of your listeners, you don't have to have a fancy degree to get rich. Okay, you just
that's a
it's cool if you do. It's cool if you do, right? Because that's amazing. It's something that I never was able to do, but it's not necessary.
That's a message, man. And I appreciate that one, because there are many ways to get to this path, and your way is very unique, extremely unique. So I appreciate you for sharing that perspective. And we're going to pick up right where you left off. So we ask our guests the same questions so that our listeners can compare and contrast and understand different business models. So we're going to dig into your field of expertise. So Umaer, what would you say your field of expertise is, and how do you make money in it today?
Okay. And I can give you some backstory, because I've done, I would say, every type of transaction under the real estate investing umbrella. Notes, tax liens, deeds, flips, creative acquisitions, multifamily, traditional rentals. I mean, you name it, wraparound mortgages. I've been around the block when it comes to real estate investing. But now my primary focus is I specialize in small and medium-sized mobile home parks. We own 4 little mobile home parks. And then I love being the bank. And what I mean by that, there's different ways that one could be the bank, but essentially I buy houses cash or even mobile homes, and then I seller finance them to deserving buyers. So that's one way that you could be the bank. And then the other way is having your own capital or raising private capital and then relending that money. Sort of like I always say, hey, look, what banks do. What do the banks do? The banks borrow money from the Federal Reserve at the federal funds rate. They take that money and and then banks relend it to us, right? So you could be a lender and you can basically sell money. So I got into the selling money business, and it's nice. It's passive. I get to control most of everything, and I have little to no downside because of the way that I structure my deals.
Amazing. So just to kind of recap that, we have the mobile home parks is one aspect of your field of expertise and how you make money. And then the money generation through money, right? So money to make money is another. Your lending business is another.
So it's really, so the mobile home park fits within the seller financing space, because I have homes in my park, and I can go into why mobile home parks and why they trump apartment buildings by a long shot. I can go into that, but essentially, if I have homes on my lot, I could take that same home and I can seller finance it and be the bank for someone else who can't get a traditional housing. So you're making the spread sort of how banks do. You know, I've created Bank of America, and I will literally finance anybody. I'm like, hey, what do you want? I'll get it for you. Because many times, and we'll get into this, many times there are business owners, like contractors. There are people who have supermarkets. They're small business owners, and they're playing the game, right? They're minimizing their tax liability, right? So they're giving themselves a smaller salary. And there's some pros and cons to that, right? Because if you minimize what you show on paper to the IRS, then cool, you're not going to pay taxes on that money per se. But then when you go and want to buy a house, a traditional lender will look at that, your tax returns, and be like, you're broke, right? So I wanted to create an answer to that issue for business owners. So, you know, business owners come to me because I know that space, right? Even me buying my own house and doing certain things was very difficult because I've never had a high-paying W-2 job. I've never had anything like that.
Okay.
So there's really like 3 in 1, right? There's
Sure.
the mobile home parks that I cash flow off of, and then there's the houses that I sell or finance. And then if someone needs a 6 to 12 month term hard money loan, I can put something together for them as well, just depending on the deal.
Awesome. So let's go into what made you actually. We're gonna go into the next question. So, obviously in the world of real estate, and you touched on some of these earlier, there's many variations to attack that raging bull, right? Many business models that you can use to build wealth through real estate. So with this unique, multifaceted model that you've landed on now, and talking about lending, but in different ways of doing lending. What made you, or what would you say makes your model successful versus other models?
It is basically risk-free, and I feel like a lot of novice real estate investors will listen to, and I hate to say this, but sometimes Bigger Pockets and programs, they teach the stupidest things ever. Like I talk to investors. I talk to investors all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I'm following the 1% rule." Who the hell? Oh, excuse my language, but who the heck could ever retire their family off of the 1% rule?
Right.
No one. And I just think people listen, and they don't. We haven't learned to think for ourselves. So it's like the 1% rule is lame.
Yeah.
It's absolutely lame. It depends on your goals and stuff, but.
And can you explain that, just for those who aren't familiar, what the 1% rule is?
They're basically saying, they're saying that your total rental income should be, if you're making 1% of that, then you're good. Like that's enough cash flow. Like basically, like there's so many people that buy rentals and they'll make like $200 a month on a rental after all expenses and debt service.
Right. Yeah.
But if a hot water heater goes out, you're out of cash flow.
Right.
And I preach this I'm like, cash flow is king. Cash flow, right? If you want to use your real estate investing for lifestyle, if you want to use it to build wealth, you want to always structure your deals in a way that they're cash flow heavy.
Okay.
Cash flow heavy. It's gotta be. Even in a high interest rate environment, there are still ways to structure the deal to make it cash flow heavy.
Okay. And can you dig a little bit more into, just because the next question is going to go into like ranking this model against other models, right? So can you dig a little bit more into the structure of your deals that makes them cash flow heavy?
Yeah, sure. So essentially what I do is I buy houses in the right markets, right? Because I look at landlord tenant laws, I look at eviction laws, because it's all about conversations and contracts in this business, right? So essentially I buy houses, cheap houses, right? I bought, people don't believe me. I could pull it up on my computer right now, but I've bought little houses in rural areas for as little as $30,000, $20,000. And people think that's unheard of, absolutely unheard of. So I'll buy a house either with my money or even privately raised money. And then on that house, I will do a lease with an option. So I collect a non-refundable option. That's cash flow to me. And then I rent it out for 12 months to the tenant buyer, right? Because I do like a rent to own type of thing. And then if they are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, if they're taking care of the home, and there's certain stipulations that I put in there, after 12 months, I tell them they don't need a bank. I will finance this house to you. Okay. But this is my cookie cutter deal right here. I'll buy a house for 30 grand. I'll collect a $3,000 non-refundable option. Okay. Then I'll pocket rent of around $800 to $875 a month. That's just cash flow. And then I'll take that same house that I purchased for $30,000 and sell it on seller financing for $89,900. $89,900. And a lot of the times, like I can raise $30,000 because who doesn't have 30 grand sitting around in their savings account, right? So that's actually how I started. I started this business with no dollars out of my own pocket. And I offered my buddy a 10% interest on the $30,000 he gave me. So when I collected that option, the $3,000 covered my private money for the year. And then I took that same property and I pocketed the cash flow. This is my first deal. I can show it to you. I could pull it up. And then, so I pocketed the rent money. And then when they were ready to exercise the option, I said, because there's different ways that you can sell or finance properties to other people. You got to understand the ins and outs of how to do it.
Sure.
But I'll take that home and say, you know what? You don't need a bank. You don't need credit. You've proven yourself. You've got a job. I love it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finance this house to you. And so there's a spread from the 30,000 and the 89.9, right? That's a spread. But the way notes work, like if you go and get a loan from Wells Fargo, if you get a loan for $600,000, if by the time you're done paying that loan, depending on the interest rate, you would have paid double, triple, even quadruple back to the banks. And so I fell in love with the idea of being the banks because Americans are conditioned psychologically for the American dream. Right. Now, I'm not saying having a home of your own is good or bad, but that is essentially the model. And so I have all of these notes that pay me on the first. I have 79 units right now, and I get paid on the 1st and 15th of every month because I wanted a paycheck every 2-week pay period, right? Just like a job, but I don't have to work for it.
Yeah.
And the best part is this: the way I do this is I never ever have to worry about tenants, toilets, or termites.
Right.
If one of these people that I've seller financed the property to, if they call me, oh, my plumbing's out, I'm like, would you call Wells Fargo? Would you call Bank of America? Why are you calling me? Right?
Right.
Go call a plumber. It's your house, right?
Yeah.
And so this has been my bread and butter now.
Wow.
Because those who understand interest earn it, and those who don't give it away. And so you got to be very, like, it depends on your goals and what you want to do. But just by understanding how to have the conversations and how to structure the contracts, with a stroke of a pen, I create wealth and equity out of thin air. I mean, that's what the banks do, right? So I teach my students, I'm like, guys, like I've got developer friends of mine right now. Like they've built $1 million properties in DC, right? And they built these properties, they put thousands of dollars into them. They've got these huge loans. And because of the interest rates rising, these multi-million-dollar properties are not selling. They're sitting. I've got developer buddies of mine on the verge of bankruptcy because they want to play in the fancy stuff. Guys, I run from sexy stuff. I like to live a sexy lifestyle, but if I know that everyone else is doing it, I don't do it.
Wow.
And that's investor psychology. Warren Buffett talks about it, right? Like everyone wants to jump into the market at the wrong freaking time. Now, why do I like playing at the bottom of the market? Because if you look at what's happening right now in the marketplace, people from New York, people from San Francisco, there are people in dense metropolitan areas. They're moving to rural areas because of the lower cost of living. They can work from home. Like all of the people moving, because I own a lot of properties in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. A lot of the people that I'm attracting, right? They're wanting to leave these busy areas and be in more affordable areas. So right place, right time, right market, right returns. And, it's just amazing. I don't wake up stressed out about money anymore. And wow, it feels really good. And I genuinely want that for other people, but they're too, I would say, distracted. Yeah.
So look, honestly, and for my listeners, okay, and I hope you caught that because it was, there's certainly some layers to what Umaer was saying. And what I want my listeners to understand is, although he lays it out like butter and makes it sound easy, right? what he touched on a little bit, but I'm letting you know because I know the background. This dude put in the educational work. So please don't think, oh, I heard this strategy from Umaer, I'm about to just go. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to get educated first. You have to really understand the ins and outs of what you're going to do. He didn't just go do it. He really invested in his education first. Then he went and tested it out and did well. So,
well, just to be honest, I lost money. I had a guy, and I'll never forget his name. His name was Edward Barnes. If you meet a Edward Barnes in the DMV, run.
Oh, goodness.
Run.
Yeah.
So I had a guy, and this is before, I was doing different programs. He goes, I gave him, it was like $15,000 on a fake deal. This is before I knew about promissory notes or getting things notarized or first lien positions. And he goes, I'll be your mentor. I was like,
oh, goodness.
I was like, really? You'll be my mentor. I was so happy. I got a mentor. I got a scam artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was working for the school system because my sister got me a job with something called the SAC program. It's basically childcare. I had so much fun working with the kids, right? But I was like, I was broke, man. I was making less than 30 grand a year. It took me so long to save that money.
Goodness gracious.
And I never got that money back. But whose fault was that? It was mine.
I
don't play the victim card. I do not play the victim card. That was 100% my fault. And one way or the other, people end up paying, whether it's through getting like a coach, getting a mentor, really diving into it, or just like accept the fact that you're going to lose money a couple of times on deals, and you'll learn from that and hopefully adjust. I just like to minimize my losses where I can,
So we're going to go into that because when you talk about minimizing losses, right, we're talking about risk, and that's one of the factors in our next segment. And it's going to be rapid fire, right? So for this next segment, we're going to evaluate your business model against a common set of criteria to assess, compare, and contrast with other business models, right? And you said something to me I
said this. I'll say it again.
Before, and I want you to repeat this.
I'll say it again.
Go into this, please do.
I will put my model up against any model in the real estate investing marketplace. I don't care if you're a developer, a wholesaler, a flipper. There is no model that comes close to what I do when it comes to risk, when it comes to returns, and when it comes to creating cash flow and building wealth. And I will put my word on that. Anyone listening to this, you can message me. We could talk, but I will definitely put this model up against as the best thing that anyone can do, whether you're a novice and you're a beginner and you don't want to go through the risk of flipping houses, the risk or the annoyance of cold calling with wholesaling. If you don't want to go through that, you don't have to. You just got to understand how to structure deals in a way that you're always winning. And I'm more than happy to elaborate on it to help people.
No, let's get into it. And we're going to keep this rapid fire kind of short. So maybe like 15, 20 seconds per factor. But ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Mr. Umaer Haq's going to be joining us on August 9th for our UPC Fridays, where we're going to dig into this model in more depth. So if you really want to hear the in-depth version of it, pull up on that event. But for now, we're going to hit the rapid fire. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. Startup costs. So on a scale of 1 to 5, and all of these factors, by the way, Umaer, will be ranked on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being easy, 5 being hard in general, with some variation. So startup cost, with 1 being very little startup cost and 5 being a large startup cost, how would you rank your business model?
You can get started with none of your own money out of pocket. Like I said, my first little brick house that I did this on, I raised $30,000 from a friend of mine, and I gave him 10% interest. Right. Okay. So it's on the scale of 1 to 5, it is the best, because even a novice could raise the money to do this model, to get their first little house done, or their first, seller finance deal done.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a 1 for startup cost. Moving on to the next one, risk. You talked a lot about risk. So 1 being little risk and 5 being very risky. How would you rank this business model of the seller financing and lending?
It's a number one because of the way that I structure my deals. And let me explain to you why, right? I only invest in markets where there's a 30-day eviction. And that's after they've paid me a substantial down payment. So on that first house where I collected a $3,000 option or a $3,000 down payment, and I was charging $875 a month. They gave me $38.75, right? That's how much they gave me. If they mess up, it's a 30-day eviction process.
Yeah.
So I've got the control, and I can turn around, list that same property, and collect another $38.75 from a willing tenant buyer. No risk. No risk. And then even when I seller finance it, sometimes people are like, Umair, well, what if you have to go through the foreclosure process? Not me. Not the way I structure my seller financing. If they don't pay, they don't stay.
Oof.
Right. And so it's all in the way you structure your deals. And so no risk. In fact, if they mess up, it's better for me because then I make more money.
Wow.
Now, obviously, I am in it to help my tenants. I have so many good reviews, truck drivers, people who have just gotten a divorce, people who wanted to relocate and the bank wouldn't give them an opportunity. I have so many people give me good reviews because I really want to help my tenant buyer own that home. And they know that if they do their part, I'm going to do my part. And so I find this as a model that, like, I love to give back. I love to see people happy. And I get to do that with this. But at the same time, I'm creating massive and passive income.
Awesome.
Right now, just think about this. The rates are high, right? Now imagine if the rates drop and they want to refinance with a bank. Well, as soon as they refinance, I make a big check, right? Now, maybe depending on how much they owe on the note, I make 50 grand, I make 60 grand. So I'm not just making small passive income. If they refinance, if they pay me off, I'm making big checks as well.
Wow.
So this is a volume-based play.
Okay. So the next ranking is going to be on scalability, right? So one from not very scalable, or I'm sorry, one from easily scalable to 5 pretty rigid and not scalable. How scalable would you say this business model?
Well, that's a good one, right? I can't give that a 1 because it's got to be a 3 because of a few factors. Number one is the education piece. Right? You got to learn the business model. You got to know the ins and outs. You need some hand holding. Like, you got to get your head wrapped around it. Right. So that may make it hard for someone to scale, even if they just did 1. Right. The other thing is scalability. Well, see, it's interesting because in 3 years, like when I started, I went from $0 in revenue all the way up to 20 grand in revenue in 3 years. But I worked my butt off. So that's a tough question, is it scalable?
Let's come back to that one because we have one on learning curve later, and maybe that might give a little bit of insight. So
with the mobile home parks, I like buying the parks because there's lots, and those lots are scalable, right? And so you're making money off of the dirt, but if you own the homes, you're also making money off of the homes. And then if you take the home and you sell it on a note or an installment contract, now you've quadrupled your returns.
So let me ask you this, because this strategy is unlike unlike a selling, a flipping strategy, or even unlike a BRRRR strategy where you refinance, take the money out. This strategy, your money is staying in the property until the tenant moves out. I mean, you're getting the monthly rent, right? But the money for a large part is kind of held up in that. So would you say that limits the scalability somewhat? It's not like you're getting,
I don't have any of my money in the deals.
Okay, fair enough.
I help my investors make 7 to 10% on their money, and it's no risk because I'm protecting them by the underlying asset, which is the real estate for them, right? And it's better than allowing it to sit in the stock market because the stock market is very volatile. So if they're looking for a fixed return, that the best of both worlds, I would say.
Got it.
And that's why a lot of friends and family and people, they're like, Umair, just take my money. I don't know what to do with it. It's really, and it's like 50 grand, 30 grand, right? So I can put that to work for them and they're pleased with it, right? I give them a monthly check or I can cash them out at the end of the year, and so.
So maybe we'll say a 2 as long as you have access to capital or people with capital.
Yeah, and no one will ever have access to capital. Everyone I grew up with was broke, right? And so you have to get in those crowds. You have to go put yourself out there. You're going to want to talk to people. But as soon as you could provide value to people, they're going to throw their money at you. They want a piece of that value.
That's a good message. That's a good message. And I'm glad you said that. It's not an overnight thing, guys. And that's why UPC is here to try and help surround you with people with this capital and, so that these people become a part of your network. But still, you got to put in the work. You got to make yourself credible and all that. So we'll give that one a 2 for now, which is, I still think you're going to come out lower than pretty much anybody else's number, but let's see how this goes.
It's so cool that you're doing this to help other people, man. It shows your heart. It shows that you want to give back, and I really commend you for that. That's why I always resonate hanging out and talking to you.
I appreciate it, man. So liquidity, okay. So again, 1 being favorable, highly liquid, you can pull your money out at any time, or 5 being it's a little bit more rigid, non-liquid. You put your money in there, and let's say there's a downturn in the market or some catastrophe happens in your family. Can you get access to the money quickly? That would be a 1 if you can, or a 5 if it's hard to get access.
Well, you tell me, right? Let me give you kind of my theory here. So real estate itself is not a very liquid asset, right? If you want to sell it, you gotta list it and this and that. That's why it's traditionally the best savings account for Americans, right? Because you put your money in, it appreciates instead of letting it devalue in a savings account. But what I love about what I do is, and I talk about this a lot, it's all about being a transactional engineer, right? So if I have all these notes that now people own me because I'm Bank of America, and they're just all paying me passive income, and let's just say I have a family emergency and I really need a big paycheck. And none of my tenants are refinancing me out. They're not cashing me out. And I need liquidity. Well, I could easily sell that note, the mortgage note. I can sell that note to a note buyer. A lot of investors buy notes in their self-directed IRAs,
right?
Because they want to make a fixed yield in their retirement account over time. So let's say I gave you the example earlier. I got a note that someone's paying me on face value of that note was $89,900. Maybe the tenant buyer has paid it down, but let's say I want a paycheck for $40,000. Like I just need a big check. Okay. So I'll take that note and I will sell that note at a discount to an investor on the secondary market, right? So I'll take that note and let's say it's worth 89 still, or maybe it's worth 85 because you pay principal and interest on a mortgage note. I'll say, hey, I'll sell you this note for 60 grand, or I'll sell you this note for 40 grand, right? So I make 40 grand cash, but then the investor, I now take that note and I sell that mortgage note over to the investor who wants to own it in their self-directed IRA. So now every single month, those payments are redirected. It's sort of like if anyone listening has ever got a loan from a bank, right? And a few months after you get the loan, you get a letter in the mail saying, hey, your note is purchased, right? And so that happens all the time. So as far as being able to, if I need to liquidate, if I need a big check, I'm confident that I could sell a note or two to an investor who wants to earn a good yield in their retirement account.
So 1 out of 5, 1 being very liquid.
You tell me, dude. I would say 2.5. Let's give it a 2.5.
Okay, 2.5. We'll go with that. We'll go with that because you do need to do some marketing,
right? You still got. But that's why it's so good. Like what you're doing, you're building a community. You're sharing with people because, relationships are such a big part of this business, and it allows us to collaborate at a higher level.
Okay. So the next, we've got three more here in the rapid fire round. So passivity. You've mentioned this word before.
That's the only reason I do this, man. It's passive.
Tell the people, one, highly passive. Okay, we're gonna stop there. You give it a 1 for passive, please. Speak your truth.
Dude, give it a 0. I don't do nothing. Now, during that, if I do the lease option period and they're renting it, right?
Yeah.
If they mess up, I do have to go through the 30-day eviction process. But do you think I go through that? No, man.
I guess
I don't go through that.
Okay,
You've got, and I know you guys, if you're listening to this, you've heard this. You've got to create those SOPs. You've got to hire the virtual assistants. You've got to have people working for you, and they deserve it, right? Because you don't want to have the things that you don't want to deal with. Don't deal with them. You don't have to.
You don't do the evictions. You pass that off to somebody else.
Not in 2024, my friend. The technology and everything has just gotten so good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. It's great.
This is that advanced level, guys. All right. Yeah. So we're moving on. We're giving passivity a 1. Demand, meaning 1, super and high demand, your product that you're selling or whatever service you're providing in high demand, or 5, low demand or like high competition.
Yeah. Well, there's no competition because no one's doing what I do. And that's what I love. There's so much competition in the wholesaling space, in the flipping space, in the apartment space, and they're fighting over cap rates. I have no competition. I'm in rural areas where people aren't even looking at what I'm doing. I'm making boatloads of money. It's fantastic. Now, other investors are catching on, right? I've been noticing, right? I'm seeing some things, but competition has been unheard of traditionally in this space. Now, because of what's happening in the marketplace and the interest rates and people wanting to downsize and inflation, the cost of living is just ridiculous. I'm in demand, dude. I mean, if I get a house or a mobile home, it's gone within a week.
Wow.
It's just gone. It's absolutely gone. So the demand is there. The returns are there.
You know, I've 1 or a 2.
I'm giving it a 0, man. It's off the scale.
Goodness.
Like,
this dude.
No, I'm joking, but your scale is 1 to 5. So 1, it's definitely a 1.
Okay. Man, look, all my future guests, this is the benchmark now. This is the guy you're going to have to try and beat, and you're going to have to prove it to you. And we're going to do a versus. If anybody believes they can beat this business model, we're going to put you two head to head.
That would be so much fun. That'd be so much fun.
Used to duking it out physically. And otherwise.
No, nothing but love and respect for everyone. And like you said, there's lots of ways to make this real estate game work. I just really feel like I found the sweet spot, you know, and I'd love to be able to help others find that.
So speaking of, the last one is the learning curve. Now, would you give this one a 1, meaning you can jump right in it?
No, you can't jump right in it.
You need to get in deep before you.
And I preach this. You got to become a transactional engineer. What do I mean by that? So the economy goes up and down, right? There's upswings, there's downswings, there's sideways swings. Like that has happened in the U.S. economy since America, right? There's ups and downs. And so I tell people, you want to really learn and understand how to make money regardless of what's happening in the economy. True investors, I know there's people playing around, maybe getting a rental here and there, working their job, but true investors never, ever worry about losing money because they understand what strategies to execute and at what time, right? Like I know it's hard for me to say this, but I hope that the market crashes badly, right? I hope, because when the market crashes, it provides ample opportunity for investors that know what they're doing. We're buying foreclosures, we're buying at auction, we're negotiating short sales with the bank, right? We're making money. We're buying portfolios of properties from the banks. That's what people did back between 2006 and 2009. Now, let's say we're in an upswing. Everyone's making money. Hoorah. You can wholesale, you can flip. Right? Let's say we're in a stagnant market. Well, you can still hold on to your passive income rentals or notes. So it's not about understanding one strategy over the other. It's just like when you go to school. You want to lay a good foundation as a real estate investor. And then based off of your personality and what your short, mid, and long-term goals are, structure your business in a way that works for you, right? Because everyone has a different personality, everyone has different goals, and everything works. So you really got to ask yourself what your intention is, right? What is your intention? Is it to create passive income? Do you just want to do this as a side gig? Do you have other businesses that you're doing that you love and you're just kind of diversifying into real estate? You got to have a method to your madness.
Okay.
Like real estate's my main squeeze.
Yep.
But I'm bored now. So I'm again looking, I'm bored. So I'm looking at getting into mergers and acquisitions and private equity. So
we're going to have you back on to talk about that.
Oh man, it's something I'm super excited about. I'm looking to buy my first business this year, and I'm going to be an absentee owner of the business. That's the best part, So it's exciting.
Taking passivity to the next level. So just to kind of sum this out, for the learning curve, it sounds like you probably put it.
I would give it as a 4. It would be because guys,
it's
not going to happen overnight, and I know people want the easy route. But if you had a mentor, I would say 2.
Okay.
If you're just trying to figure out how to do lease options and seller financing and notes and all this stuff by yourself, you could figure it out. We live in the information era of the world, right? But it's just like information overload.
Yeah.
But you can get your first little seller financed house deal done fairly quickly.
Okay.
Fairly quickly. So I don't know. Give it a 3 or 4. You know.
So we'll stick with a 4. I still don't think anybody's beating this, Umaer. I'm doing some quick math, so we'll go back over this. You said for startup cost, you give it a 1. For risk, you give it a 1. For education, we said a 2. So we're at 4 so far. For liquidity, you said 2.5. For passivity, you said 1. For demand, you said 1. And then for learning curve, you said 4. So that's a total of 12.5.
Okay.
And we have 7 categories. So that is a very low number.
Awesome.
At 12.5 out of, I guess that would be 35. So barely a third. That's pretty good. So I would challenge anybody to beat that score, and we'll see what happens. But thank you so much, Umaer, for giving us your time today. Just to kind of round this conversation off, is there any parting words that you want to give our listeners who have already learned so much today?
I would tell them that the number one thing that they could do is start a business. Start a business tomorrow. And, it's all about learning how to own nothing. I don't own anything. I just control everything. And you got to control your money, your lifestyle, and everything through properly structured businesses. This is what wealthy people have been doing for ages, but they condition the everyday American to just follow the masses. And so everyone listening has a massive opportunity to create the life of their dreams. And they can definitely do it through real estate. So whether you're doing it by yourself or you're getting a mentor, go for it.
Awesome. And then how can the people get in contact with you?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Umaer _Haq, UMAER_HAQ. You guys, I'm around. You're my buddy. Ask him, contact me through you, right?
Absolutely. You guys can hit me up. I'll put you in contact with the master. He's giving me permission here.
And we got to get your first couple of little houses done, man.
I know, man. I got my rental over there. I'm working on number 3. But I'm coming back into the fold to make number 3 happen, man.
Let me 10x your game here.
Awesome.
It's gonna be awesome, dude.
And last thing for you, just tell them why you're rocking with the UPC network. I know you're not super familiar, but this is what we do. We provide access to people with knowledge. We bring these people in to educate our members. So tell the people why you're rocking with it, Umaer.
The reason I'm here and the reason I showed up is because I know that Justin, Jay, you go by Jay? I'm calling you Justin.
This is my alter ego.
Okay, Jay. Well, I know him by Justin, but I'll say Jay. Yeah. I know that Jay has a heart of gold, and I know that he is authentic in his approach. And so anything that he does, I would stand by him. He's a guy that I've met and we've been in and out of contact. But when I met him, I knew that he had a heart of gold, and it's really about helping people.
Awesome.
And you know, I think that's why most people should continue to stay plugged in and follow the podcast. It's great.
Awesome. Well, Umaer, thank you so much. I know you have another engagement after
Yes,
this.
sir.
We appreciate you, and we'll be seeing you on August 9th.